This is my angle grinder. Angle grinder, I can also cut wood, concrete, steel, stone. We use this in stone carving, depending on all the different types of attachments. Right now, I have a cutting disc. It's thin, and it's made of, I believe, silicon carbide. It's an abrasive. So it's designed to wear down, and it basically sands through the material quickly. This goes at a very high RPM. It's a fairly dangerous tool to use because this can bind, these can break, throw pieces everywhere, but you can do a lot with these and they work fairly quickly. When I start this, depending on what direction it's moving, it will send sparks in whichever direction that the wheel is turning and how you introduce it to the material. And I'll show you that in a second. This is our guard. Lots of people remove these guards because it makes it easier to get in, but that means that you can hit your hand on the other side that you're not cutting. You can move this guard to any number of different locations. At the college, you are not allowed to remove the guards. Do whatever you want at your house. A lot of people think these are silly. They've been using it for years, it's fine. But people also cut their fingers off and hurt themselves and do all kinds of things, so the guard is on there. In order to change this, we make sure that we're unplugged. We take our arbor nut off. We have two types of arbor nuts, one with threads, one without. You can see in the back of this, it's got like a rectangular cutout. That fits down onto the rectangular section of this arbor. This is the arbor, this is the arbor nut. I'm going to drop this down on. It locks into place. It's got a little collar that's sticking up. That's for me to set this on and line up. If I'm using a grinding disc, I'm going to take that collar and put it down. If I'm using a cutting disc, I want to have no collar so that it clamps this thin piece of material. So that collar will be up. It's now aligned because of that collar. The cutting discs fit right in the very center. I have this button on the back to lock my arbor. I'm going to press that button, keep pressure on it until I feel it depress, because there's a spot where that will line up and this depresses all the way. Now this is locked. I take my arbor key or my arbor wrench and I'll tighten it. You can see these holes line up with these little nipples or whatever you want to call them right here. Those stick out, we tighten it. Always do this with it unplugged. My cutting disc is now ready to cut. Here's my timer. Can you grab me that extension cord over there? Or actually, there might be one over there too. Yeah, the extender is right there. Thank you. Oops, sorry then. So we have a number of these extensions in the room. So you should be able to pull them out, and then they lock and they don't retract, but they don't always work that well. So here I'll take and I'll plug in my machine now that it's all set up. This is loud. This sends sparks, and I want to wear safety glasses. I always wear a respirator and hearing protection for sure. You're going to see, and I'm not going to cut quite yet. You're going to see that this will send sparks in different directions depending on where I introduce. If I put this here, the wheel, I'm going to start this real quick, spins like this. Right? So let's see, which way did it go? Spinning that way. So if I'm spinning this way, which way, if I put it right here, which way is it sending sparks?
Towards me.
Up and out, towards you guys. So this is not going to just send sparks to where the sparks stop. It's going to send particulate clear across the room. So I want to think about that. If I put it here, where is it sending them? Straight down. So that's where I want to do it. I'm going to do both just to show you. The other thing to keep in mind is that the closer I am to my vise, the more control I have and the less chatter this will have. Now this is fairly thick and stout, so it'll probably be fine. But if I have a thin piece of material, where I want to cut it, I need to have it pretty close to my vise. I want to have it far enough away to where I'm not hitting my tool into this as I try to cut, but I want to think about my location. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bearing protection on. I'm going to show you it sending sparks one way versus the other way, depending on the orientation of my tool. I can choose that orientation by changing the position top or bottom, as well as by changing the direction of my tool. If I flip it like this, now I've got the exposed parts facing me, which I don't like either. Right? So I can loosen this guard. I will unplug it. I could loosen this guard and move it to a different location if I want. I want to make sure that I'm not clamping the arbor when I do that. So you can move that guard. I'll plug this back in. Bearing protection on, safety glasses on. Pretty quick and easy. I want those sparks going down. Also notice that that guard doesn't just keep my hand safe, it keeps sparks from flying at me. It redirects them down. They will get embedded with the abrasive that's coming off of the tool. You can smell that smell, right? You can't smell it on the video, but there's a smell that is a very common metal shop smell, which is the smell of the abrasive wearing out. These wear down, they're expensive, but you get what you pay for. If you get the super cheapo ones, they fly apart, they break apart. These are fiber reinforced, so they have less opportunity to break and rip apart on you. If I'm using this tool and I'm cutting and I'm not going straight through the material, and I twist or flex at all, it will crack the blade. So I want to be really good about, I generally hold the material and the tool in a strong position where I'm kind of locking my arms into my body so that I can make sure that I have more control over this, right? And then I can also minimize the amount of movement. If I'm out here, I do all this. Now, if I have a sanding disc on this and I'm trying to get some smooth curves on some piece of wood that I'm carving, I want to be able to have that control and that movement. When I'm cutting with a disc on metal, I want to be very rigid. This particular angle grinder's got a paddle switch. In order to start it, you flip the safety down, this little black guy, and then you depress it. This has what's called a worm drive in it. The motor's spinning this way, but this is spinning the other way. It will have a little bit of torque. If you're holding onto it safely with two hands, it should be fine. We also have an additional handle that can be screwed in to either side, depending if you're right or left-handed, or depending on what you're cutting and what you're comfortable with. These are all of these tools. When you check out the angle grinder from the tool room, all of these things will be in one little wooden bucket, little wooden box. The arbor nut, generally a cutting and sanding disc and a grinding disc, the handle, and the arbor wrench.